Hello there guys and welcome to F1 2016. It is finally here. I've finally got my hands on the game on release day and we're here ready to start our career mode. As you can see we're going for a custom weekend which will involve full qualifying but 50% race distance, and we've gone for expert difficulty for now. But if it gets too easy later on, then I'll up it to legend difficulty. As you can see I'm choosing my avatar and also my helmet design. Now in terms of the helmet design, I went for this concept where we've got the black star and also some of the black elements, a bit similar to what Nico Hulkenberg has. I've gone for the overall main colour being orange with a hint of purple around the edges because that's actually the colour. Orange is actually my favourite colour, and purple is actually the main colours of my university that I've just recently graduated from. So pick a bit of a mix up with the colours, so I thought it would be quite unique as well. Obviously I'm British, and for the number I decided to go for number 23 as that's the date of my birthday, and also it's the same number of the most famous basketball player of all time in Michael Jordan, and it's one of my favourite basketball players numbers right now in LeBron James. And as for the team, as you may possibly know from the previous video, it is going to be with Manor. I was very tempted to switch to Sauber because of the fact that Team McMyard UK is already doing a Manor career mode, but I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to go with Manor. I'm going to go with Pascal Wehrlein as my teammate.
Hi, I'm Emma Jenkins. I'm a specialist in contract law and I've been brought in to work as your agent. I'll be working to get you the best deal in the boardroom, which means you need to do the best possible job out there on the circuit. When you get new contract offers, either from new teams or an amendment to your existing offer, it'll come through me. I'll also keep you up to date on discussions behind the scenes to change your terms, or any specific goals that the team has set for you. If a contract offer does come through, I'll present to you the available offers and then you can make the call. I assume that all sounds fine. Well then, good luck this season, and I'll catch you later.
I'm really liking the new career mode hub where you're actually in the team's motorhome rather than just staring at a loading screen or the championship standings in the background during the game. But anyways, here we are in the Manor motorhome in Australia, ready to start our first F1 season with the team, alongside Pascal Wehrlein as our teammate. And let's get into practice one at the Australian Grand Prix at the Albert Park circuit.
Welcome to Melbourne, where the practice session is about to start for this weekend's Australian Grand Prix. The pre-race talking is over. Now it's time for the drivers to show their worth. I'm here with Anthony Davidson once again. Nice to see you, Ant, and I wanted to ask you about how you go about improving the car over the course of a practice session. How much would you say is already known from the pre-race simulations? And how much do you have to do, how much do you have to work on with a real car on a real circuit?
Well, that's a good question, Crofty, and I suppose the simple answer is that there's no such thing as too much information. As you say, the bigger teams have very complex simulations, vast numbers of clever people crunching the numbers back at base, but what they can't tell you is stuff like how the track condition's going to be, or what the temperature's going to be doing over the course of the day, and how all of that's going to be interacting with the tyre. There are so many millions of tiny variables involved in getting these cars around a racetrack quickly, but the computer can't tailor the car to a driver's specific balance requirements. At some point, you still need to put a human being in there and have them feel it through the seat of their pants. And that's why we end up with different drivers having different setups. So what I'm trying to say is, Crofty, nothing beats on-track testing.
Alright then, here we are, starting our very first lap in F1 around the very famous Albert Park circuit in Melbourne, Australia. As you can see here, we're actually going to be doing the track acclimatization program, trying to get through as many gates as possible, hitting all the right apexes to give us some good enough resource points so that we can then spend on trying to develop this car, as right now the Manor obviously is the slowest car on the grid, and we want to try and get that car as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, so that we can challenge some of the more established teams like Renault, or the new team Haas, who are in the midfield, Toro Rosso, and maybe guys like Force India, but we'll just have to see how well the actual development goes. As you can see here, we did it alright on our first lap, where we just about managed to get the expected result, and then we also exceeded the expectations on the second lap, so we were able to end the track acclimatization program a lap early, and we were able to get the maximum points there. I then moved on to the tyre wear test program, but unfortunately for us, this was actually quite a challenge for me personally, as I'm not really used to managing the tyres that well, and combined with the fact that I'm using the PS4 controller rather than a steering wheel that most of the other YouTubers use on their career modes. But after a couple of attempts, I was able to get all greens on this attempt with the medium tyres, so I was able to get a good chunk of points, resource points, and pass the test as well, which is always important. As we got cut to the actual graph in the pits, as you can see, I'm not too far off what I need to do when it comes to improving it and going into the purple section. And as you can see, I did get slightly better as the laps progressed. But anyways, we're now going to cut to the final test, and that is the qualifying setup. As you can see here, we're coming up to the end of our first lap. As you can see, we got quite a bit held up by the Haas of Esteban Gutierrez, but fortunately for us, he's actually helped us out a little bit with some slipstream, along with some DRS, which allowed us to come across the line and actually set a purple lap time for our first lap as we come across the line, actually overtaking Gutierrez into turn 1. It's our first unofficial overtake of our F1 career. As we now cut to the end of lap number 3, as you can see, we did a purple lap on lap 2, and we're also going to do a purple lap for lap number 3. So qualifying is looking very good for Saturday. As you can see, we finished in 11th place at the end of practice, but it's not a very reasonable time considering that everyone else is on softs and mediums, so it's quite hard to tell where exactly we are overall. We'll just have to wait until qualifying. And this is the amount of resource points we obtain. I'm on the limited edition, so I've got a bonus 500 XP to start with, so that's going to be good for us to develop a possible part of the car.
Hi. Good to meet you at last. My name's Chris, and I'll be working with you as your Chief of Vehicle Development. It'll be my job to get your feedback as a driver and to direct our upgrade design in the areas that you feel are most lacking. At each Grand Prix, we can run a series of practice programs and log the performance of the car as you drive it at its limit. This gives us data that we can utilize to develop various performance improvements. In order for me to know which upgrades to prioritize, I'll need you to select a development area that you'd like us to focus on. And you can do that in the R&D section of your laptop. Anyway, that's all for now, but I'll keep you up to date, okay? I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Chris. So he just essentially explained what the purpose is for all the practice programs that I just ran and showed you earlier on in the video. As you can see, this is the R&D section of the laptop. As you can see, we've got 5 different categories: engine, fuel efficiency, chassis weight, downforce, and drag. So we've got 680 points to spend, and I decided to spend them on the downforce section, 475 points. It gives us a little bit of a chunk on the right hand side of the screen there. And if Sauber don't end up developing their car a little bit, then we possibly could be very close to being level with them if we can develop more than one thing. But what I decided to do, I decided to go for the downforce to start with, and then if we've got enough, if we earn enough resource points in the next couple of qualifying and the race, we'll then be able to upgrade the drag straight away, or save up for the chassis weight, which is another good step chunk on the bar there. But as you can see, we went for the downforce, and we're going to apply that, and that hopefully should be there for the next race.
Welcome to Melbourne, where qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix should be getting underway shortly. This is the kind of track that eats rear tyres for breakfast, or so I'm told by more experienced drivers than myself.
Lots of low-speed exits means the rears are in for a lot of punishment. It's all too easy to spin them up coming out of a corner too aggressively. It might look great for us as spectators, as we love to see a car driven beyond its limits, but it's not going to result in a great long-run pace.
So here we are in qualifying, ready to start our opening lap. As you can see here, we're on the soft tyres to start with as we go into rich fuel mix to go across the line. I decided to experiment with the soft tyres to see how far we are behind relative to some of the other drivers if they end up using soft tyres also in this session. As we cut to the end of the lap, as you can see, we are quite a bit slower than obviously the main players like Rosberg, etc. They're all on the super soft, so possibly that was a bad mistake to go on the soft tyres straight away, and I essentially just wasted a set of tyres. So what I decided to do, as you can see, I'm dropping down the field already as the cars set the lap times. As you can see, I've now come back into the pits, come back out again on the super soft tyres, so hopefully we can improve on our current 21st position, which is actually what we're trying to achieve, at least 21st or higher. So that's the main aim, to try and exceed that, in my opinion. Now, hopefully we can challenge either the Renaults or the Saubers, possibly. As you can see, we've come across the line. We're currently in P17 right now. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough for us to get into the second part of qualifying, so that's qualifying over for us. We ended up dropping down to 19th place, following the Renaults, both Palmer and Magnussen, the two Renaults, improving. But we did manage to out-qualify both Saubers, which was good, and also our teammate Pascal Wehrlein, which is also good for our rival/teammate battle that we've got going on as part of the game. So anyways, let's move on to the race now.
The atmosphere is heavy with expectation and anticipation, and bearing the weight of that burden today is a place we know very well indeed. It's Albert Park. The story of the season begins here then with the Australian Grand Prix, and it's time for the first chapter to be written. We go racing today then in the state of Victoria, where the drivers have 16 corners and 3.3 miles to navigate at an average lap speed of around 120 miles an hour. The close proximity of the barriers makes accidents inevitable, and recent history shows us that a safety car is not at all out of the question. I'm joined today in the commentary box, as I will be throughout this season, by a great racing driver, a former F1 competitor, man who was world champion once upon a time as well, and an all-round top chap. It's the one and only Anthony Davidson. And tell me, here we are, first Grand Prix of the season, the first time racing these cars. So what are the big questions that need to be answered here, in your view?
First of all, Crofty, and thanks for the glowing introduction, I just want to say it's a real privilege to be here, and I can't wait to see what this competitive field has in store for us this season. Now, to answer your question, obviously there's the question of performance in race trim, but really this is going to be all about reliability. It's the first Grand Prix of the season, don't forget. You're pushing all your new components to their limits. Formula One cars are full of very sophisticated but also very sensitive technology. So the most important thing today is to get to the end of the race, keep everything in good condition, and try to stay out of trouble while you're at it.
You managed to qualify better than we expected yesterday, so let's do the same again today.
With that then, let's run through the grid order. Sebastian Vettel will start on pole. Fantastic qualifying from the multiple world champion. And Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Raikkonen, Rosberg, Max Verstappen and Ricciardo, Bottas, Massa, Sainz and Jenson Button, Kvyat, Perez, Fernando Alonso and Hülkenberg, Grosjean, Gutierrez, Kevin Magnussen and Jolyon Palmer, Manor and Ericsson, Felipe Nasser and Pascal Wehrlein completes the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Alright, here we are on the grid. As you can see, we're going on to the race strategies now. I decided to go for the low time management strategy, even though it says the time is 11 seconds slower. But to be honest, as I've mentioned before, I am terrible at tyre management, and I know I'm quick, and the fact I'm going to be on 2 stints of super softs surely means I'll be able to close the gap on the guys in front, and also the cars behind that are possibly doing 1 stop or 1 less stop. So I'm going to risk the 2-stopper. Let's just see how it goes. Anyways, we're now on to the formation lap, which is actually the first time the F1 games actually contained the formation lap for 10 years, since F1 06 and F1 Championship Edition, which was actually the first console game I actually owned on the PS2. Anyways, we're here on the formation lap after a very good manual start. That's another feature that's part of the game. So let's hope we can actually do that on the actual start when we come round again. But yes, as you can see, we're coming into turn 1. I like the fact that you've got all this freedom as well, being able to decide when you can wheel, when you brake, when you accelerate. And obviously, you have to keep an eye on the car in front to make sure you don't run into the back of them, because that's very easy to do. As you can see, we're now coming on to the end of the formation lap. Let's hope we can make some ground up. Let's hope we can actually get past the 2 Renaults. That'd be very good if we can scrap with those guys, but also manage to keep the Saubers behind if the start doesn't go that well.
The rest of the grid is forming up. Be
Lights out and away we go. We've made a cracking start, blitzing past Jolie and Palmer immediately, and now we're trying to challenge the Haas of Gutierrez and the other Renault of Magnussen's are going to turn on. But look at Palmer going all the way up the inside, getting a bit on the grass there, but he's made up 4 places, taking that gamble, and now we're having to deal with the second Haas of Romain Grosjean. We're going to go and try and go up the inside into turn number 3. Sure, we had to brake a little bit earlier there because of course don't want to run into the back of Palmer. We're going side by side with Grosjean into turn 4. We're still side by side as we head up towards turn 5. But Romain Grosjean goes a little bit wide on the exit of the corner, and there's contact behind. We may end up with a safety car on the very first lap of the season and of the career mode. As you can see on the replay, Grosjean just goes a little bit wide and actually gets hit by his teammate Gutierrez. So it's been a terrible start for the new Haas F1 team, considering what happened to them in real life where they were able to score their first F1 points in Australia. But looks like it's going to be a very long afternoon for the team in this career mode as we now cut back to the live feed. The safety car was not deployed though, so that was a bit, I don't know if that's fortunate or not, but anyways, we're going to try and go up, past Jolie and Palmer after he managed to overtake us into turn 1. We're now going up the inside into the second last corner, then going right around the outside and into the final corner as we begin lap number 2, and we're up into P15 as we start lap 2. Cutting to 1 lap later, as you can see, we've managed to hold on to the next 3 cars ahead, which includes both McLarens. As you can see, we're going to use the power of the Mercedes engine to completely drive straight past Alonso and Button. So we've gone past both McLarens as we head into turn 1. We've overcooked it slightly, and Button's able to regain his position. We're able to maintain our place ahead of Alonso though, so we have net gained 1 position. As we cut to another camera, you see Magnussen's fancying a piece of the action and fancying a piece of Alonso, the man who replaced the Dane at McLaren at the end of 2014 for the 2015 season. And it looks like the Renault is getting a little bit of revenge on the Spaniard, but Alonso would have that position back a bit later on during the race. You can see as we cut to the end of lap number 6, Alonso is now back into 15th place. And also, we've got quite a few cars coming into the pits. It's pretty much the guys that started on the super soft tyres but had to run, but qualified in the top 10. So essentially, the guys that already had scrub super softs. As you can see there, Raikkonen just rejoined out of the pits in front of us in 10th place. When we cut to 1 lap later, it's actually our pit stop time to put on a brand new set of super softs. So let's see how far behind we are relative to all the guys that will most likely be one-stopping on that started the race on soft tyres, but will be looking to just do one-stop and go on to the mediums a bit later on during the race. Let's just hope that Manor give us a good pit stop. And it's fairly easy. I mean, it could have been a little bit quicker, but it's the first pit stop of the season, so I'm going to let them slide as well. And we're not really expecting much anyway. As we rejoin out of the pits, that's Jenson Button, who actually made his pit stop a lap earlier, so we did lose a little bit of time to the McLaren driver, but that's because of the undercut, the power of the undercut, and the fact that he was also on the super soft tyres for his second stint. So he's on similar strategy to us, and we just have to see how close we can get to the cars that are currently on the one-stop. So it took us quite a few laps to start catching up some of those guys. We come in to start lap number 12. That's actually our teammate Pascal Wehrlein. We've managed to catch him up after 5 or so laps. So Wehrlein actually doesn't put up much of a fight. He takes one for the team there and lets us go up the inside into turn number 3. And we have moved up a position and have gained on one of the guys that is one-stopping this afternoon. As we cut to the end of lap 12, that's actually the pit stop time for the majority of the one-stoppers. As you can see there, we are moving up a couple of positions. We're up into P15 for now, and then there was a couple more pit stops the following lap, and so we ended up moving up into P11. This is actually just after Bussen made his second pit stop, and we're just behind the Force India of Nico Hulkenberg. As we come around turn number 3, there's a car going really slowly, and that's the Williams of Felipe Massa. He's running into car problems of some sort, and we've actually been promoted into 10th place, so we're currently running in the points position, if only for just a lap or so, because our pit stop lap is actually lap number 16. So we're running in the points, but we won't only be for a temporary amount of time. As you can see, this is back on board Massa. You can see he's struggling to get out of second gear. It looks like he's got some sort of gearbox issue, and that was the reason why he was going so slowly and why Hulkenberg was able to get past, and also myself was able to get past. Fortunately, like in the newer game, I think the AI are moving out of the way a lot more compared to when cars had problems before in the past. But anyways, we're now at the end of lap number 16. It's time for our second pit stop of the day. We're going to be putting on the medium tyres, which will go to the end of the race, let's just see how far we are behind or ahead of some of the guys that have already one-stopped, because this super soft stint was absolutely crucial to see how close we were to some of those one-stoppers that we're battling, such as the Renaults and also the Haas guys. And it's a pretty decent pit stop from the team. Let's just see whereabouts we rejoin. We've rejoined behind a Haas, as you can see there. Romain Grosjean has gone through, so we did lose a position there. That's Magnussen in the distance, so we've gained a massive amount of time on the guys, most of the guys that were doing one-stoppers, and we're currently sat in 12th place. As we come to the end of the second sector, we're about 5 seconds behind Grosjean and about 5 seconds ahead of Magnussen, so we're not really challenging anyone, but we haven't got really any challenges from behind. However, what I actually didn't notice at the time when I was recording this was that I actually managed to jump a couple of the two-stoppers that got caught up in traffic with the one-stoppers. Guys like Jenson Button, who just overtook Magnussen there, and also the Toro Rosso of Carlos Sainz. So we're going to have maybe under attack from these guys a bit later on in the race, maybe towards into the closing stages, because of the car's superior pace compared to ours. As you can see, Button is starting to close the gap a little bit more, and I sort of crack under the pressure a little bit as we go wide into the second last corner, very similar to what Vettel did in real life when he was chasing after Lewis Hamilton in the closing stages of the race. I'm hoping that we can fend off any challenges from behind, but as we come to the end of lap number 28, as you can see, we're going to look behind us now. Button is only half a second down on us as we come into turn 1. That's his, that triangle thing represents that McLaren Honda. As you can see, he's managed to reel in at least the 5-second gap that he had between us and him, and he's now going round the outside, trying to go round the outside. We keep the inside line and ensure we maintain the position, but this was essentially a massive scrap throughout the final lap. As you can see, Button is looking to try and overtake us in the fast chicane section. We did hit the wall slightly as we're heading into the third sector, but we were very lucky not to cause any damage to the car, either a puncture or a front wing end plate. So riding our luck a little bit as Button looks very feisty coming up to the 90-degree right-hander just before we're at the fourth last corner, but he's kind of made a mistake there. I think we're going to get away with finishing it in 12th place, and we're going to be able to finish ahead of a McLaren Honda, which is absolutely fantastic for us. I didn't think we'd be challenging those sort of cars so early on in the season, but a fantastic strategy call by us to make good use of the two pit stops and come home in a fantastic 12th place.
Good job, you did really well. Super driving.
Brilliant stuff from Mercedes today. That's another historic win. Tell me, Ant, what was the key to this success?
The difference was clearly in the strategy. You could tell they'd done a lot of work on the pit wall to really optimise each stint and get the most out of the tyres. And it highlights just how much of a team sport this really is. But credit to the driver as well, though. There's no good having a well-oiled machine behind the scenes without a talented hand on the wheel, of course.
So as I say that, we can see the drivers coming out now to collect their trophies. It's yet more silverware to take back to their base in Brackley after another excellent Grand Prix. And now let's take a look at the drivers' standings. Lewis Hamilton takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship after an excellent result. And now I'd like to ask you, Anthony Davidson, who was your driver of the day?
For my money, it's definitely the Manor driver. They fought so hard and had incredible pace at times, so I don't think anyone else did a better job today.
And here's how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes move to the top of the table. That's it for today's Grand Prix, and from Ant and I, it's goodbye, and see you again next time.
So already some recognitions from the commentators there. We got driver of the day from the Australian Grand Prix. But here's the results here. Hamilton won the race, Vettel in second, Rosberg in third, Raikkonen in fourth, Verstappen fifth, Bottas in sixth, Ricciardo in seventh, Kvyat in eighth for Toro Rosso, Alonso in ninth, so he did a pretty good job there, and Hulkenberg ran out the top 10 in 10th. Scrolling down to the bottom there, Marcus Ericsson was the only retirement during the race, and Pascal Wehrlein did finish in 19th place, so he did move up from his back of the grid start in position. So let's have a quick look at the Drivers' Championship. Obviously nothing's really changed because it's essentially the race order from the Australian race. with Hamilton leading the way and Vettel and Rosberg. We're currently sitting in 12th. That's probably going to change depending on who else scores during the season. But if we cut to the Constructors' Championship, there was something a little bit glitchy, I thought, about the Constructors' standing. So I think if we cut to the actual thing here, for some reason Sauber are in front of us, even though we finished ahead of them on track. I just don't know whether that's the glitch or something like that. But anyways, on the Constructors' Championship, we have Mercedes ahead of Ferrari with Red Bull 3rd, Williams 4th, Toro Rosso 5th, and McLaren 6th, and Force India in 7th. Hopefully we can get on the point scoring board as soon as possible, because that's the main aim for us to beat Sauber and possibly Renault this season. So I hope you guys enjoyed the very first episode of the career mode. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next race that in Bahrain for the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first night race of the season. As you can see here, we've got the resource points that we obtained from the race, and we're hopefully going to be using those next time out and to try and improve the car a little bit more, either the chassis and also possibly the ballast. As you can see on the rivalry update, we've done very well against Wehrlein as well. We've just completely dominated him that race, and also we're going to be on the more favourable side of the driver position as well, which is fantastic. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this race. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe for the next ready for the next episode, and I'll see you next time for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Until then, see you later.